Welcome to the Engage podcast, brought to you by Boodle, the most rewarding way to pay. If you haven't already, get onto the App Store and download Boodle. That's Boodil. The Engage podcast is where we speak to some of the most inspiring entrepreneurs and business leaders. In today's episode, we are joined by the successful entrepreneur that is Arjun Sofat, the founder and CEO of Freesoul, the female-focused health brand that sells direct-to-consumer via its e-commerce store, after having previously been listed across the likes of Boots, Holland Barrett, Selfridges and Superdrug. Freesoul is a female-focused health and wellness brand which provides a range of products designed by leading UK nutritionists, specifically designed to care for the female body. Arjun, prior to setting up Freesoul, was an M&A investment banking analyst for Barclays before unleashing his entrepreneurial flair. Welcome to the show, Arjun.
Thank you for having me on, Harry.
Brilliant. So let's go into your story, where you grew up, your background there, and moving forward to starting up a business like Freesoul.
Amazing. So where to begin? I think life before finance was such a blur. It was school, cricket, and that's pretty much it. I was a very keen student, studied really hard, and just thought that banking was where you needed to go after school. And so everything that I did, from studying economics to pushing the right maths courses to doing all that kind of stuff, was to land a job at an investment bank. And that ended up happening, basically. Yeah. The thing that was really contrasting was once I landed up at the bank and I was on the desk. Mm-hmm. Because to be honest, I lived a life at that time that really lacked purpose. And it stemmed from the fact that I didn't really believe in the work that I was doing. In the back of my mind, I would just be thinking about the life that my granddad lived, which was very entrepreneurial. So for context, he grew up in Kenya. He was the guy that worked in the airport to lift bags onto that weighing machine is.
Weighing scale.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. And his big dream of life at that time was, I'm going to come to the UK and become a bus driver, and I'll bring my family with me, and it'll be amazing. That was his
overall
that
goal.
was his goal, because he grew up in very basic backgrounds, and there were like 5 of them sleeping in one room, and it was that type of a story. But long story short, and skipping a few facts, he ended up coming to the airport and buying tickets in bulk. And it turns out when you buy in bulk, you can get a discount. He then took those tickets, flipped them, and made a margin. And he essentially started a ticketing business out of doing that. And he didn't become a bus driver. He became a ticketing agent. And through doing that, he was able to put his kids through a formal education that he never had. And that story was always in the back of my mind, because I believed, and still do believe, that is work with purpose. Like, it is work that impacts people's lives directly in some way. And I didn't fundamentally believe that the work that I was doing in Barclays was fundamentally important for my life. And so I always had this entrepreneurial itch, or the itch to do something with purpose. And that feeling sort of compounded. And at the same time, my dad had this health scare, which was incredibly stressful. And thankfully, he's okay today. But my mum took it particularly badly. And so she found herself exercising and trying to take care of her well-being, both mentally and physically. And that's when the gap in the market became very apparent, because she, at the same time as exercising, was trying to take care of her unique nutritional needs as from a female perspective. But there was no go-to. And so this opportunity to fill that gap was so clear, and it was so personal as well. And so I thought to myself, okay, well, you can do something about this, because no one else is. Everyone else is focusing on weight loss or meal replacements or skipping this or that and dropping dress sizes, but no one's focusing on fundamental wellness for women. And this is an important thing to focus on, because it can impact lives. So I was faced with this decision where it's, okay, you have a good job and you have security, or you can go address this important thing and have purpose in your work and actually impact other lives. And so I knew that I wasn't happy where I was. And actually, once I realized that, it was very easy to leave my job. And so I did the kind of non-conventional thing and just jumped straight into building Freesoul. I didn't have a transitionary period or anything like that. I just resigned. And then the next day I started working through what needed to be done to create a brand, or at least what I thought needed. It turned out I wasted a lot of time doing like things that needed to not be done. But anyway, I jumped ship straight away. And it took about a year of development to work the supply chain, create branding, and we'll get into it later, I'm sure. Yeah. But long story short, it took a year to develop Freesoul. And I remember our first sale, I had to move back in with my parents because I couldn't afford to pay rent anymore. Moved back in with my mum and dad. And I was brushing my teeth one morning and my Shopify pinged off. And that was our first sale.
Amazing.
And it was just the most amazing feeling. I just ran down to the kitchen, toothpaste still on my mouth, and I was like shouting to my mum, "We got a sale." This is amazing. And then to go from that to where we are today, where we've made real progress and we're helping thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers across the globe, it's just been an incredible journey.
Amazing, brilliant. Well, what an introduction, what a story. So let's go back to the Barclays days. Obviously, you've decided that you want to go into female nutrition, the female health space. You've got this idea. You decide that, I'm looking to leave Barclays, and this is the right thing to do. Where do you go? Where do you start? You've not got a background in nutrition, I don't believe. Where do you come up with a concept? How do you go and find the right manufacturers? Go and talk to me about the formation of the business, because that's always one of the biggest challenges when people are starting out, identifying manufacturers, building a website, identifying, the legislation and regulations around the sort of food and nutrition space. So go into a bit of that detail for me.
From memory, I think the first thing that I did was Google how to start a business and like how to register, how to incorporate a company, how to find an accountant. So I did all the basic Googling and set up all of the things that needed to be done from a legal perspective. And then I did a Shopify course.
Okay.
Because we couldn't afford to hire developers or anything like that. So I needed to build a website. And so I completed the Shopify course. Then I did a Facebook course because I needed to know that I needed to advertise. I needed to advertise, needed eyeballs. Did those two things basically in parallel. And then I found people to help me build the brand. And so I had some savings from Barclays and used essentially all of it, minus sort of 10% because I needed stock, to fund the building of the brand, the creative work, photography, typography, all those types of things that I needed to have on the website. We then built the site. I had a bit of a marketing budget, and the really difficult thing was the manufacturing. All the nutritional work was done by a clinical nutritionist called Dr. Cunliffe. And he's one of the most well-respected nutritionists in the UK.
Sorry, I was going to say, so where did you find him? How,
I think there's a register of clinical nutritionists, and I just phoned everyone.
Oh, wow.
And I got loads of no's, loads of I'll call you backs, but Adam took my call. And so we met 3-4 times. I told him why this is important. I decided that we're going to start with a high-protein blend for various reasons, but I thought it was a great product to start with, because it addressed so many issues. And I said, this is what I think we need to create, but we need to have some data behind it. So how are we going to create surveys to find out what women actually need to have addressed in specific proportions versus the male body? And he's the one that came up with the whole formulation and testing and all that sort of stuff.
Amazing.
I then took that recipe and tried to get it manufactured. But everyone said no, because there are so many ingredients that go into the Freesoul blend. And we were only buying, I think, 1 pallet's worth. And so I knocked on so many doors, but no one was willing to take our order because it was a lot of work.
Big risk.
It was a lot for a manufacturer to do, to only get an order of 1 pallet's worth. Eventually, we found a guy, amazing setup, great factory, and I just begged and pleaded with him. And he eventually said yes. And so he produced, I think, 1 pallet of 1 flavor for us, because in the beginning we could only afford one flavor.
And they were based in the UK as well?
Yeah, based in the UK. And it's paid off for him. Just last month, I think we took 35 pallets of that same 1 flavor, and we've got 5 flavors in total. So I think he's happy he took a bet on us, and I'm very grateful that he did as well.
Amazing, brilliant. So finding that manufacturer as well, Obviously, you went and reached out to a number of them. Where did you go to actually look to find? Obviously, was that a Google thing as well? Like search on Google who could produce this, and obviously having multiple conversations.
There's so many directories. I think the UK is such a great place to find reputable manufacturers because they're registers of all these things. So there are hundreds and hundreds of different facilities, and different facilities will have different production capabilities. And I didn't know all of this at the time, so I ended up phoning hundreds of companies. Some of them only produced pills, some of them only produced tablets, some of them only produced other types of blends. And vegan nutrition or plant-based nutrition was a very novel concept at the time. And so everyone was talking about whey protein or casein or, dairy products. But we had a focus on plant-based nutrition because it's kinder to your digestive system. And so not many people, and to be honest, it's pretty tricky to find great manufacturers of plant-based products. And so it was just a cold calling procedure. Then went and visited loads of them, saw who had the best facility, who could make the blend, and ended up narrowing down on this one guy.
Amazing, brilliant. So now you've got the product, you've got your manufacturer, you've obviously developed a brand around it and packaging, you've created your Shopify store. How do you get your first customers then?
Well, then it's the back end next though, because we've got the product, but I don't know how to ship it.
Oh, okay.
And so I thought, well, where do I keep this? How am I going to send it? And so my parents' house was our first warehouse.
Nice.
And so it was just in the garage. I'd pick and pack. We'd do the palletization, and we'd send orders just by popping into the post office. But that really was not scalable at all, particularly considering that I was doing absolutely everything in the business at this stage: marketing, finance, cleaning up, 3PLing. And so we eventually moved to a third-party logistics house.
Okay.
We've been with them since that day because their rates have been amazing and they've supported us, and they've grown as we've grown. So that was then the next leg. And that in itself was extremely difficult to understand.
I can imagine.
It was just, what is a pick fee? What do you mean you have to make the box? The box is already there. The lingo and the contract.
And SKUs. And
SKUs. I had to Google what that was. And so trying to navigate that minefield was tricky, but it was very educational. When I look back on the early days, I used to think, my God, that was inefficient. But actually through doing that, it's presented me with a good foundation of knowledge that I now use that helps us to scale. So it was annoying at the time, but actually great lessons in that whole period. Then came marketing and how to get
acquire customers.
Yeah, exactly. In the very early stages, I had to understand what marketing was before actually doing the marketing. And so I remember I used to ask my mum to drive me to all these different pop-ups in London. And we'd wake up at the crack of dawn, literally 4 or 5 in the morning, because my parents live in the countryside and I had to make it down to East London. And so sometimes the trains weren't working, particularly not at that time. And so my mum, she would literally just drive me around and I'd hand out samples and hand out leaflets. And so that was the first stage of marketing. Yeah. And again, inefficient, but a lot of the people I know today are because of those early days. And
things that won't scale. Sometimes you have to do those at the start, don't you?
Exactly. Because that's how you also build a network within the space you're in. Your face gets seen, your logo gets seen. And so that was the early stage because we didn't have enough budget for anything else. We then experimented with Facebook ads, and to be honest, it didn't really work very well, probably because I wasn't doing them properly. So that didn't work well. So the initial phase of growth was very organic. Okay. Word of mouth, I would say, was the big lever. We then got a retail deal through Revital, who, we were talking about them earlier. Yeah. The owner of Revital ended up being an investor in the business. Amazing. I went to that meeting just to meet him, pick his brain, see how the whole operation worked. And he ended up placing an order, I think at the time, for like 2-3 grand. Amazing. I felt like I won the lottery. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I took the evening out, took my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, out for dinner. Brilliant. And it was just a
great feeling.
Yeah, it was a great feeling. Yeah. And then we used that money to retry Facebook ads, and it worked this time because we did things differently. And so that initial wheel of momentum was used to then fund influencer marketing, which at the time was just on a gifting basis. But that in itself costs money because you're losing the stock, you're paying delivery fees, all that sort of stuff. And then that paid off, and we were able to expand into other channels.
Okay.
So yeah, those were the early days.
Brilliant. And you mentioned obviously investment there.
Mm-hmm.
What were the reasons, and when did you take on this investment, and why did you decide then was the right time to have that capital in the business, and obviously sacrifice a bit of the business to give away to an investor? What were the reasons that, sort of pros and cons against it?
I never really had my eyes set on investment when I was setting up the business. It was one of my friends who told me if I offered you the option between owning 100% of a grape or 20% of a watermelon, which one would you take?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you choose the latter, not the former.
Depends if you prefer grapes or watermelons.
Yeah, very, very true, very true. But it was that thinking that got me to realize, okay, well, it's not about the percentage. Mm-hmm. It's about how much each share is worth. 100%. And also it's about the purpose. So the whole reason Freesoul exists is to improve the well-being of our customers every day. It's to get people healthier, address specific concerns in their nutrition or well-being. And I needed to do that at scale. Mm-hmm. I could have bootstrapped further. However, it was speed that we also needed and wanted to be able to impact more lives. And investment allowed us to have more speed because we had a mechanism that was working. It was showing clear ROI. Mm-hmm. And therefore, with more effectively fuel in the tank, we could go faster using the same methods. And so that's why we took on investment. And we've done a few rounds since then for the exact same reason.
Amazing. So talk us through getting into stores. That's always one of the challenges when you have these businesses that spring up via an e-commerce operation. You've got your likes of your Gymsharks, etc. And there's always that consideration. Do we just stick to being an online only brand because mm-hmm. margins are greater? We know who all our customers are. There's greater data mm-hmm. coming in. Versus, do we sell to retailers and we don't know who the end customer is necessarily, and we're sometimes at the mercy of them to dictate where our brand goes. So What were the considerations for going into retail? How did you decide which were the right retail partners? And actually, how did you get into those retailers as well?
They all came to us.
Amazing.
So we had Boots, Superdrug, Revital, apart from Revital, Argos. They all came to us and requested stock. Requested listing, all that kind of stuff. And in the early days, when someone offers you 200 stores, you'd be mm-hmm. crazy to say no.
Yeah.
Because it's volume, it pays for the stuff that you're currently constrained by.
Yeah.
And so honestly, that was it. It was serendipitous. We thought, you know what, let's go in. And then I think we went into Boots the day Boris announced lockdown. That's when our first pallet was going into the warehouse. And during that time, our online business just went through the roof. It really grew and took off. And so that's when we realized, actually, historically, we've played in retail and it's gone well. Mm-hmm. But you need to invest. You need to invest in both channels, whether it's online or retail. You need to invest in retail gondolas, which are the things at the end of the stores, or you need to invest in retro funding to fund promotions, whatever it might be. And in online, obviously, you need to invest in consumer acquisition or customer acquisition. Mm-hmm. We didn't feel that it was a good idea to try and do everything and not do it that well.
Yeah.
We'd rather double down on the thing that we're most confident in. And that's why today, Freesoul is a pure direct-to-consumer business. We don't sell anything to retail anymore. Yeah. So we just ran down our stock and then doubled down in everything online. And it's really paid off. Freesoul's growth year on year is kind of 4x the last October to October, and it's not showing any signs of slowing down. And that's, I think, because we have singularity of focus.
Yeah.
We're not trying to do everything. We've got no resource at all going into anything else but online.
Okay. And that was the main decision then, to move away from the retailers, just to really double down and focus on your e-commerce sort of operation?
We followed the customer. I think
mm-hmm.
whether it be general forms of marketing or this specific decision,
yeah,
we always try and understand where are we best placed to serve our customers. And we think it's online. Mm-hmm. We think that's where our customer base really is. We don't think that they're on the high street to the same extent that they previously were. And we think that they get a better experience from Freesoul when it's straight from us.
Yeah, perfect, brilliant. This podcast is brought to you by Boodle, the cardless payment solution which offers significantly reduced fees, instant settlement of funds, and eradicates fraud and chargebacks. Boodle can sit on your e-commerce checkout as an alternative payment solution, or can offer clients a fully customized payment portal to send out payment links. What's better is that Boodle rewards customers with redeemable points every time they check out. If you haven't already, get onto the App Store and download Boodle now. So let's go back onto what we're talking about there, the consumer and your customers in particular. When you are trying to acquire customers and retain customers, what strategies are you putting in place to really sort of propel and develop the brand and be at the forefront of their mind when it comes to purchase consideration? Obviously, within the market of supplements and health, there is a lot of competition. I know you've got a nice USP because you focus on females, and obviously you do have a nice brand and a great product.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you stay at the front and center of mind of consumers, and how are you utilizing consumer feedback to really sort of develop your product as well?
It's a great question. I think it depends on how you view yourself a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
We don't view ourselves as being within the supplement space.
Okay.
We view ourselves as being in the female health space.
Mm-hmm.
And so by having that clear sense of identity, it allows you to educate and be known for the right things. And so number one is brand awareness. We need to be seen. We always say, if you pass someone in the street, have they heard of us? Mm-hmm. If not, we've not done our job yet. And so that we say that all the time. And so number one is every single woman that you pass on the street should have heard of us. And we're not there yet, but we will be. And that's what we're focusing on. And so that's number one, brand awareness. And then you have that from different angles. So digital marketing, paid media, that's one form of brand awareness. So Facebook ads, Google, Pinterest, all the rest of it. But then you have the other places that the customer is in. So PR, are they reading magazines, or are they in bougie coffee shops? So can we do pop-ups there? Can we host events for our community? How does word of mouth spread? Can we work with amazing influencers and ambassadors who have credibility that will only endorse products that they truly believe in? That way the customer has that confidence in the product from day one. So that's how we get brand awareness and ultimately conversions through the website. And then it's just about caring about the customer. They're never going to come back if your product's not good. Mm-hmm. It's like we were talking about the haircut I got for today. I personally am very impressed with the barber's job. And so I'm definitely going back. So it's the same thing with our products. If we make a promise to the customer that, it will do X, Y, Z, and we don't deliver on it, they shouldn't come back. But we do deliver on those promises, and therefore they do come back. We have extremely high repeat rates on our products and really high LTVs, and that's because the product is good. And I think that's where you need to start always. It's always on the product and the consumer.
Always focus on those two. Amazing. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about some of the challenges. Obviously you've been running for a number of years now. You've had some incredible growth, but along every journey there's always the biggest challenges and these moments which can make or break a company. So let's talk about from the early days all the way up till now. Where have been the biggest challenges and some of the biggest setbacks you've faced with the business?
I think if I had to pick one, it would be mindset. In the early days, I was transitioning from a very corporate job to one that's not corporate whatsoever, as you can see by the attire today.
Running it in your mum and dad's garage.
Exactly. And to be honest, the biggest challenge that I faced was not knowing what I don't know, and therefore addressing blind spots. Today, I can ask relatively specific questions about my blind spots. I can say, I don't know, how can I get customer X that I acquired through channel Y to repeat more in month 6? Super specific, and therefore I can come up with a strategy with the team to answer that question. The issue in the early days was the questions that I was able to ask myself were very broad, and therefore I wasn't getting the answers from myself. It was, how do you run a business? How do you acquire customers? And how do you make the whole thing work? And therefore, there were so many blind spots in the early days that the challenge was in itself answering and asking and therefore answering those questions. I used to think of those days as a waste of time, because if I knew then what I know now, we would have been here so much quicker. However, it's all part of the process. And therefore, that mindset shift of this is a journey, and there'll be things today that I do that in 2 years' time I look back and think, oh God, why'd you do that? You know? So I think just accepting that the whole thing is a journey and a process, and the mindset shift has been the biggest challenge, but hopefully we're getting there now.
Amazing. Brilliant. One of the other biggest challenges that we hear a lot of entrepreneurs that we speak to discuss is growing a team. And also sort of team synergy and how well, you know, that they gel, etc., and how well they hire. How have you found hiring? How have you found, you know, sort of bringing on the right people? And how important is your team overall to the success of the business?
The team is everything. You know, there's no way that Freesoul would be where it is today without the team. And I'm just a player on that same team. Everyone has their roles, their specialities, their functions. And I feel very lucky to have the people that I have on the Freesoul team because they're all hungry. I think, you know, it's just literally 2 days ago, we had a review of the past 12 months and where we want to take the next 12. And we all want to be the best in the world. Freesoul has to be the global leader in female wellness, and we all share that drive and ambition. And that's rare. And I think I've realized that lately because as the team grows, you're trying to find other people that have that same drive, hunger, and ambition. And that's not easy. You know, the current team, the current Freesoul base has that culture, has that way of working, and has that focus whereby everyone's trusted to run their jobs. You know, that's the type of culture that we have.
Amazing.
But being able to extend that onto new joiners, it's a challenge because it's happened by accident, if I'm being honest. So this whole culture that we have was not by design. But we're trying to get that to extend as we build a bigger team. So hiring is definitely a tough thing.
Okay. And then on that topic of hiring, obviously when you are a relatively small business in terms of personnel, I know you're just under sort of 10 people. There's that challenge where, you know, you can't necessarily bring on specific experts within very niche things like just a paid media. How have you identified people that can do not only the role but maybe cross over in different divisions? I mean, how hard has it been to actually identify talent, and how are you actually finding these people? You know, what resources are you using? Are you using agencies? You know, because I suppose that's always one of the challenges that entrepreneurs and you know the sort of SMEs have. It's identifying where do you find this talent.
I mean, I'm still trying to answer that question if I'm being totally honest. It's so far we've worked with recruiters and agencies and we've had great results. The issue is I genuinely feel we've got quite lucky with with the team. I didn't realize that I was hiring the people that I have hired, and so being able to replicate is the challenge that we have now. And so the thing that I'm trying to do as well as I possibly can is be 100% honest and transparent about working in Freesoul. And the thing that I always say is this isn't a job. You know, everyone's an adult here and I'm not going to micromanage. But you need to be hungry for it because this won't be your typical 9 to 5. You know, Lucy, who works on all things creative, she's the creative lead at Freesoul. I talked to her this morning on my way up on the train. So that's at 7 a.m. And she was texting me at 11 p.m. last night.
Wow.
We're all very hungry. And so that's not the type of thing that you would do in a normal job. But we're always on it and we're always thinking about how to excel because it's exciting. We're doing things that we've never done before. We're getting results that we've never got before. And everyone likes that feeling because what that actually means is we're impacting lives, impacting wellness. We're impacting the ability to see things in real time from our customers, which is huge. And that's what drives us.
Brilliant. And I suppose that leads nicely on to the next question then. There's this mindset, you know, being an entrepreneur and a business leader that, and that sometimes there's that sort of conflict in what people believe in terms of a business leader will always work harder if it's their business than the people working for them. So how do you balance that in terms of your personnel? They work really hard, which is fantastic, but the incentives there are different to your incentives. Your incentives is your business. You own the majority of it. How do you incentivize them to really work the way they are working now? Obviously there's that shared goal, but what other incentives do you have in place for the team to really keep them ingrained and motivated to do what they're doing?
I think it's a multifaceted approach. So one is that we have, I think it's called an EMI scheme in place.
Amazing.
And so that way everyone's got skin in the game.
Brilliant.
So that's a big one. I think it's crucial. The second bit is we talk about, in this company review that we had, one of my slides was, why bother doing this? This sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's a super valid question. Like, why bother working in the way in which that we work?
Yeah.
You know, and it comes down to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to having the opportunity to create work and output that really matters. I would argue that most companies don't offer that. And I actually know what it's like to be in a job where you're not very happy because you don't believe in the work. And therefore, I can have those honest conversations with everyone about, well, how are you doing? Like, do you enjoy being here? Do you enjoy your work? What don't you like? And they're very honest back. And so when you address those types of questions and you focus on the work that you're doing, I think it's quite easy to be driven and to have that culture within the team.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I do agree with you there. Yeah. So talk to me then. Obviously, you've got a big vision for the business, as you've said there. You want every female across the country and further to know who Freesoul is, which I think is fantastic. But talk to me. What do you foresee the two or three biggest challenges moving forward as a brand, as you grow, as you develop as a business, from an operational point of view, from a commercial point of view, etc.?
I think the biggest is team, to be honest. You know, to grow, we on a basic level, we just need to do more of what we're doing. Obviously, we'll do it in different ways, but the principles that we're doing, we just need to execute it more. And so being able to put a team in place that can deliver on that and be held accountable on their own, self-accountable, I think is a big challenge. Being able to find the right people and put them in the right seats, such that they're doing the right things that deliver the right results is a massive undertaking. So we're in the process of figuring out how best to do that. The second thing is to make sure that we're educating in the right way, and I think we do this well. Our products are different and they're so distinct to what is already out there. It's our job to make sure that our marketing reflects that. And finally, I think we need to best serve our community and our customer base. And again, I think we're making good strides there, but we can always do better. We're hosting a polycystic ovarian syndrome pop-up to raise awareness around PCOS, I think next Friday or is it Saturday? Can't remember now.
One of the days.
One of the days. And I think doing those small things are actually really big things because of the reach that we have through paid media and organic. Us doing those little events has massive impacts on the people that have those types of conditions or concerns or feel that they aren't being heard. And so we need to be able to do that across the board spectrum of different things that we talk about and continue to serve our community and our purpose. Freesoul, and obviously I am biased, but the work that we do fundamentally matters because it impacts people in very specific ways. And so therefore I think maintaining that focus of why we're doing what we're doing is also crucial to being able to achieve the other things that I mentioned.
Amazing. Yeah. And when you talk about the consumer element there, in the customer element, in terms of doing these pop-ups and semi collaborations. So when you are looking to work with another brand, potentially an influencer, what things are you looking for in terms of that collaborative approach? What do the brand have to have, or the influencer have to have, to make you want to do, actually, these could be a good fit for our business to do something with?
You know, we've done it well and we've done it badly. Every time we've done it badly, it's because we've partnered with someone or something that is not 100% aligned with our vision or our goals or our brand. And so I think the way in which to do it better is to not repeat those mistakes and keep that authenticity and integrity to what our purpose is. And we find that when we filter through that, it ends up delivering great results. So that's how we find the best partners.
Amazing. And what channels are you finding deliver best for the business, in terms of, obviously nowadays the social landscape is constantly evolving. There's new things popping up all the time. And then on the flip side, you've got more traditional marketing, billboards, ads, and then also like sort of pop-ups and, things on the ground, experiential, that sort of stuff. Where do you find is this sort of sweet spot for yourselves as a business in terms of channels, in terms of delivery from both above the line and a below the line perspective?
You know what? It's a strange time because attribution is an unknown game right now.
Yeah.
And so trying to understand the customer journey perfectly has never been more difficult.
Yeah.
We have tech in place to make sure that we do have sight on this. However, it's still tricky. I think if you focus on the fundamentals and first principle thinking, which is first people need to hear about you before they purchase. There's that stat that you need to be seen 7 times before the consumer will make a purchase.
Yeah.
That will allow you to cover your bases. And then we treat paid media as almost bottom of the funnel to close the loop. And so last click attribution will tell us where that bottom of the funnel is, but we'll focus on filling it in different places. And we'll have a very kind of, didn't Steve Jobs say something, or was it Amazon that said our strategy is experimentation, isn't it? So therefore we take that approach with top of the funnel. There are different routes to getting that brand awareness. We're going to test and see which are most efficient on CPM basis, a reach basis, or all the rest of the standard metrics that you'd guess.
Yeah. And then you go, as you work down the funnel, then it's more like specific paid media to
test your
close the loop.
creatives, close the loop, all that kind of stuff. Test your keywords.
Amazing, brilliant. So give me in your ideal vision, where does the next 2 to 5 years look for Freesoul in terms of, I know now it's not just UK, you sell across multiple countries worldwide. So talk to me about the vision for the next 2 to 5 years, where you see it going and where you'd really like it to be.
The end goal for Freesoul is to be the biggest on the planet for female wellness. And therefore working backwards, it's just about accelerating for us. We need to be able to first serve the customers in our home market as well as we can. And so before really investing in outside of the UK, we need to be known as a great British brand. And so we're working on this country first, being able to be a household name, serve as many customers as we can. There are 30 million women in the UK. We've definitely not sold to all of them.
Yeah.
And
you're getting there though.
Yeah, 100%. We are. And that is our plan first. That's our short-term / medium-term plan before taking on Europe and the US.
Okay, amazing, brilliant. So that's an amazing overview of the business and yourself. But I suppose what's the goal for you? What's the end goal? We always speak to these entrepreneurs and they've got these great ideas and they talk about the 2 to 5 year plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you want to create Freesoul to be in the or be known by 30 million women across the UK, which is fantastic. But what is the goal for yourself? What is the real driver for you to build this brand?
I think it varies founder to founder. You'll hear founders say, "Oh, build 3 years, flip it, buy a boat, go on holiday." That's it. Yeah. But for me, I love what I do. I really do enjoy getting into the office, sitting with a team, working on how we're going to do what we're going to do. And so I honestly just want to fulfill the mission of Freesoul and build. That's it. I don't really crave anything else.
No.
All I want to do is build this business to scale and to be the number one player on the planet. And that's what drives me. So my personal mission is 100% aligned with the businesses because I like seeing that come back to us in the DMs, the customer service, all the different touch points. When you read those customer comments or whatever it might be, reviews, there's a great feeling when you're having a purpose and an impact. And so I'm just enjoying the journey, keen to scale as a business owner as well as the entrepreneur and individual, because that process of growth is really rewarding as well.
Amazing, brilliant. And I suppose sort of to wrap it up then, give us or are you able to provide a bit of an overview of where the product landscape is going with Freesoul over the next sort of few months to a year? Have you got any new creations coming out? Is there anything to sort of tell the audience about? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, if you followed us for the past sort of year or so, you'll know that our range has really multiplied, and that's not showing any signs of slowing down. We've got our pipeline built for the next calendar year, so there are loads of launches coming out, and we're aiming to cater more specifically to the nutritional needs of women in the various subcategories. So that's how our NPD is formed.
And what are those categories? Go and talk to me.
For example, we've targeted PCOS as one of those categories. We've targeted perimenopause as another one of those categories. Amazing. The menstrual cycle is another one of those categories. So the really specific use cases for the product.
Brilliant. That sounds awesome. Brilliant. Well, Arjun, absolutely. I love your business, love your
Thanks,
brand. And I'm looking forward to seeing you, progress even further with it.
Amazing. And thank you so much for having me on again. Really enjoyed being here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Harry. Cheers.
Thank you.